Colleagues, I rise in support of this legislation, the Maryland Second Look Act. But it may not be for the exact reason that you would think. For me, this legislation is about justice. Was justice served in this sentence? We know that in Maryland, Black residents are 30% of the population, but 72% of our prisons. Our own Maryland data tells us that Black and Latino residents are sentenced to longer sentences than any other group or any other community. I'm not proud of that. Was justice served? So for us to have a piece of legislation before us that allows us the opportunity to take another look at those sentences for people who were 18 to 25 years old when convicted, for us to have the opportunity to ask the question if justice was served in that sentence. Why would we not take that opportunity, colleagues? So if you believe in fairness, if you believe in making sure that our justice system works for all, then colleagues, you will proudly vote yes for this bill.
Welcome to this edition of Rattling the Bars. I'm your host, Maximus. According to press releases published by the Maryland Second Look Coalition and the ACLU, quote, the Maryland House of Delegates passed the Second Look Act on March the 17th, recognizing the urgent need for reform in a state with some of the nation's most pronounced sentencing disparities. The Second Look Act, House Bill 853, passed a final vote in the House. The vote was 89 yeas and 49 nays. Now the bill will move over to the Senate, where it has until April the 7th to pass. Delegate Linda Foley, representing the 15th District, who voted yes on the bill, sent a statement to the Real News Network providing some critical context. Quote, the Maryland Second Look Act follows many other states, including California, Oklahoma, Colorado, and New York, to allow a judicial review of sentences. The Second Look Act allows an individual who was convicted between the ages of 18 and 25 years old to request a review of their sentence by the court after serving 20 years in prison, end quote. Delegate Foley goes on to cover the details of what this bill achieves. She states, it's important to note the critical safety measures in the Maryland Second Look Act. The bill does not guarantee release of any individual. It allows an individual who was convicted between the ages of 18 and 25 years old to request a review of their sentence by the court only after serving 20 years in prison. A judge must evaluate individuals based on strict criteria, including the nature of their original crime, threat to the public, conduct while incarcerated, statements from the witnesses, etc. The court may only reduce a sentence if it finds an individual is not a danger to the public and that a reduction of their sentence is in the interest of justice. Recently, I spoke with two members of the Maryland Second Look Coalition, William Mitchell, a formerly incarcerated community activist, and Alexandra Bailey, a two-time survivor of sexual violence, about the organizing they are doing around the bill and why it's important to support the Second Look Act.
So the Second Look Coalition is a group of people who come from all different backgrounds, some being returning citizens, some being people in the political realm, some being professors. And we all support what we call the Second Look Act. And the Second Look Act is essentially when an inmate has served 20 years day for day, the judge would have the authority to possibly review that inmate sentence to see if the sentence is still warranted after the person has done tons of things to change their life.
The second look is a mechanism that is being considered all across the country. And the reason it's being considered all across the country is because America for a long time has led the world in incarceration. And part of the reason that we've led the world in incarceration is because we have a hammer and we think everything is a nail. So we've addressed everything from poverty, trauma, veterans, PTSD, the survivor, domestic violence survivors' responses, young children who are led astray by giving them lengthy prison terms. And we know that this doesn't keep us safer. This has been statistically proven. If you're a survivor of violent crime, as I am, I think the one thing that all of us would agree on is that we want no more victims. We want a safer society. We want people to be okay so that everyone can be and stay okay. The first criminal offense that I ever lived through happened when I was a minor. It was a sexual offense. And the person who perpetrated that against me is serving a life without the possibility of parole sentence. I was plagued with the pain of this for many years, for a lot of my childhood and early adulthood. And as I came to my faith and came to forgiveness, what I wanted was to understand why this had happened. And so I reached out to the person who harmed me. And what I learned is that he had also been harmed. He also had been sexually victimized as a young person, really had nowhere to turn in order to gain support. And so lived out the natural consequences of pain, PTSD, lack of help and support, mental health support. And I ended up caught in that cycle of violence. And so what I say is we need to get way upstream on the cycle of violence. If the goal of everyone, from those who are remorseful inside to those who are advocates for survivors, as I am, we have the same goal. And the only way that we're actually going to address that is by taking our resources away from a public safety concept that we know doesn't work, which is mass incarceration, and transferring it where it should have been when the person who harmed me suffered his victimization. And if that help had been there, if he had been able to go to a crisis center, receive the mental health support that he needs, have the education and access that would have allowed him to divert his life and recover from his own trauma, I more than likely would not have been traumatized. And so as a survivor, I'm here promoting Second Look because actually, if you take a look around at who our peer recovery specialists are, who our violence interrupters are, our credible messengers, the people who are out getting in the way of other people's victimization, it is our returning citizens who have kept the peace not just in prison, but are now keeping the peace outside. And I think that people who, well, based on my own faith, I believe that people who are remorseful deserve a chance at forgiveness. We all deserve a second chance. But also, from a practical standpoint, if my goal is that nobody suffers from what I suffered from, then the people who are best suited to help me, unfortunately, in many instances, are currently behind bars.
And Brian Stevenson say we're not our worst mistake. All right, so William, okay, let's unpack the second look, because earlier we talked about how this allows for a person, the bill that's being proposed, and you can go over the bill that's being proposed, is that after a person has served 20 years, they're allowed to petition the court for a modification or to review their sentence and take certain factors into account. Why can't they do it anytime? I know under Maryland system, don't you have the right to modification sentence? Don't you have a right to a 3-judge panel? So explain that for the benefit, and this for the benefit of our audience that don't know the criminal justice system and understand that.
So our Maryland rules, specifically it's Maryland Rule 4-345, subsection E. What it does is it allows for a judge to have the authority to review a sentence, but that reviewing power is only from 5 years from the imposition of the sentence. Meaning, if you have a lengthy sentence, no judge is really going to consider within 5 years, if you have a lengthy sentence for maybe a serious crime, if you've changed your life. Because most people's thoughts on it are if you've committed a heinous crime or something that's bad in public view, you need to sit for a long time, which may be true. Some people transition, grow, and mature at different stages and different
Right.
ages. My crime, I was at 23. So, I really wasn't developed. I had a very immature mindset, though an adult, technically by legal standards, I was still very immature. But the law right now, as it sits, say you get 50 years for an attempted murder. You're 20 years old. It occurred when you were on drugs. Maybe you were gang affiliated.
Yeah, a lot of social
Family structure was
determinants.
broken. And then what happens is you sit in prison. And right now, as the law stands, you could go into prison, take every program, become a peer specialist, work to transform everybody that comes through that door.
Mm-hmm.
And unless you are collaterally attacking the legality of your sentence, there is no legal means for somebody to have a judge look at their case for compassionate reasons, or to see if the very system, because the Maryland Department of Correction, their job is to correct criminalistic behavior. But right now, you have a department that is supposed to be correcting it. And if they do, there is no legal avenue for you to bring it to the judicial branch and say, hey, DOC has done her job. This behavior has been corrected. Now, what's the next step?
Right.
Because the system was set up many years ago to punish, to correct behavior, and then and in that correction or rehabilitation, to allow the person to assimilate back into the community as a productive member. That has been taken away over the years because
Right.
one law is added on top of another law, which moots out the point of the first law. And before you know it, you can't get out. Because our parole system, like for me, I had a 70-year sentence. That means I would have to serve half of the sentence, 35 years, before I could go for parole, meaning I committed a crime, intoxicated at 23, coming out of a broken background, and I would have had to have been 53 to show the parole board the first opportunity to say, hey, I'm worth a second chance, which most people age out of criminalistic behavior, number one. And number two, if you commit in your 20s, by the time you're 30 something, you don't even think like that. And I always bring this point to anybody's mind, whether an opponent or an advocate. Nobody can say that they are the same person they were 20 years ago. It would literally, I would like to meet somebody if they can stay the same 20 years ago, because just life in general will mature you or change you. So right now, there's just no way to bring it before the judge or a legislative or a judicial body to get any relief. So even if you change your life right now, you're pretty much stuck in prison until, if you have parole, you might get the opportunity to possibly get relief.
Alexandra,
Yeah.
talk about what you look for in this particular narrative, because as William just outlined, we do a lot of time, we don't have the opportunity to get no relief,
Right.
and we do good works while we're incarcerated,
Right.
and we had no way of having that good works brought to the attention of someone that can make a decision. Talk about that.
Well, second look is just that. It's just a look. It is not a guarantee of relief. It is not a get out of jail free card. It is literally a mechanism whereby, after 2 decades of incarceration, where the criminological curve shows us that most people have aged out of crime, that you can petition a judge to show your rehabilitation. And the survivor of your offense or their representatives get to be part of that process.
Right.
Some of the most miraculous moments that I've ever seen are those moments of forgiveness. And there's rather this sort of false story that goes around that what prosecutors are doing is giving permanent relief to victims, right? I'm going to give them, in William's case, 50 years before anybody can even say hi. And that's going to heal you. That's going to make you feel better.
And that's what you mean by permanent relief?
That's what they would say. It's permanent relief. We are making sure that this person stays safe permanently. Now, there are some people who do not rehabilitate, but in my experience, they're very much in the minority. And the people who do rehabilitate, like I said, they're the ones raising other people in the prison, getting them out of criminal behavior. And all we're asking is that the courts be able to take a look. And when the survivor steps into that room, and I've witnessed this, and actually receive the accountability, the apology, the help that they need from the system, that is where the healing comes in. It's rarely through punishment. And you know that this is true because I watch survivors who have not moved on a single day from the day that this happened to them. And if you're reliving that trauma day by day, what that tells me is that you haven't received the mental health counseling, support, grief support that you needed.
Right.
And so why don't we focus on that and rehabilitation as opposed to permanent punishment? But to what William was saying, the criminological curve tells us that people age out of crime. Crimes are more often than not committed by young people who very frequently are misguided. And that is certainly true for Maryland, with a particular emphasis on the Black and Brown community.
Right.
There was actually a national study that was done of survivors, which I was actually interviewed for. 60% of us who have survived in specifically violent crimes are for more rehabilitation and second chances than we are for permanent punishment. Permanent punishment doesn't get us to what it is that we need, which is a safer society, a more healed society, a society that when things are going wrong for folks, there is a place for them to turn. Our lack of empathy and kindness is not serving us.
Also, I had the opportunity to talk to Kareem Hassan. Me and Kareem Hassan was locked up together in the Maryland Penitentiary. And he's talking about some of the things that he's doing now that he has gotten a second chance. I'm outside of 954 Forest, Maryland Penitentiary. Where both me and I'm here with Kareem Hassan, who's a social activist now. Both of us served time in the Maryland Penitentiary. When did you go in the Maryland Pen?
1976, at 17 years old.
All right, so you went in at 17, I went in at 19. When you went in the pen, talk about what the pen environment was like when you went in there.
Well, when I went in the penitentiary, like you had asked me, the first day I went in there, I walked down the steps and it was just like confusion. And I was like, where am I at now? And people running everywhere, all you hear is voices and everything. It was like you was in a jungle.
What type of programs did they have to offer when you went in there?
Well, when I went in there, they had a couple of programs, but I wasn't too interested in the programs there because I was still young and wild, running wild. I wasn't even thinking about educating myself. All I was thinking about was protecting myself because of all the stories I heard about the penitentiary.
Right. All right, now, how much time did you do?
I did 37 years.
Okay, you did 37, I did 48 years. When I went in the penitentiary, they ain't had no program, like you say, and everything we was concerned with was protecting ourselves. When did you get out?
I got out 2013 on the first wave of the Unger issue.
And the Unger issue is a case with Merle Unger versus the state of Maryland that dealt with the way the jury instruction was given at that time. It was unconstitutional because I got out under Unger. When Unger first came out, what did that do for you in terms of your psyche?
Oh man, that really pumped me up.
Why?
Because I seen daylight.
And before that?
Before then, man, I was gone. I was crazy. I wasn't even looking to get out because I had a life sentence.
Right. And okay, how many times didn't you have parole?
Yes, I went up for parole 3 times.
And what happened?
First time they gave me a 4-year rehab. And then the second time they gave me a 2-year rehab with the recommendation for pre-release and work release.
Right.
Then he come out with life means life.
And Glenadino is the governor of Glenadino for the state of Maryland at that time.
Yeah, like he just snatched everything from me, snatched all hope and everything from me.
Hope, that's where I want to be at right there. So when Unger came out, Unger created hope.
Unger created hope for a lot of guys because when it first came out, I think it was Stevenson.
Right.
And I had it in my first post conviction in 1981.
Right.
But they said it was a harmless error.
Right.
And then
Adams.
Yeah, then Adams came out. And then everybody kept going to the library, and everybody was running back and forth. Everybody was standing in them books because they seen that daylight, they seen that hope.
Right.
You know, and then when Merle was fortunate enough to carry it all the way up the ladder to the courts, was it the Supreme Court of Appeals, they made it retroactive.
Right.
So all that time we was locked up. It wasn't a harmless error.
No, yeah.
They knew it,
Yeah.
but they just kept us locked up.
And and you know what? And on the hope thing, now you're supporting the Maryland Second Chance Act. You've been going down to Annapolis supporting the Maryland Second Chance Act. Why are you supporting the Maryland Second Chance Act?
Look at me, I'm a second chance. You know, and I always equate everything I do, I always refer back to myself. And I'm looking at these young kids out here in the street, and when I talk to them, they relate to me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You know, and I need more brothers out here to help with these kids out here, because y'all see how Baltimore City is now.
Yeah.
These young kids are off the chain, and they need somebody that's going to give them some guidance, but they're going to listen to certain type of individuals.
Right.
You know, they're not going to listen to somebody that went to school, somebody that's a politician or something like that. They looking for somebody that been through what they've been through and understand where they at, because that's all they talking about.
And when you went in the Maryland Penitentiary back in 70, you say 77? 76. You ain't had no hope?
Oh, no, I had a fresh life sentence.
Right. And when Unger came out, then we had got legislation passed to take the parole out the hands of the governor. That created hope. Then we had the juvenile life bill that created hope, saying like your case, see, had you not went out on Unger, you'd have went out on the juvenile life. Yes. Because they were saying the juvenile didn't have the form, the men ready to do the crime. But let's talk about the Maryland Second Chance Act. What do you think, based on what we've been seeing and the support we get, what do you think the chances of it passing this year?
I think the chances are good, you know, especially the examples that we set.
Right.
You know, we let them know that certain type of individuals you can let out. Now, it's some people in there I wouldn't let out because, it's some people in there. But the ones we talking about will help society, will be more positive for the society, especially for Baltimore City.
Yeah.
You know, and we need that.
Yeah.
You know, so the Second Chance Act is something that I support 100%.
What's some of the things you're now doing in the community?
Well, I have an organization called CRY, Creating Responsible Youth.
And what is that?
And it's a youth counseling life skill training program where we get kids, we come through a 11-week counseling course. After they graduate from the counseling course, we send them to life skill training courses such as HVAC, CDLs, diesel training, and things of that nature. So, you know, the program is pretty good, and I'm trying to get up off the ground more, but I need some finances.
So how long have you had this idea, and how long it's been in existence thus far?
Well, when I first got the idea, I was in the Maryland House of Correction because we had a youth organization called Project Choice.
That's right.
And I had a young guy come in, and the counselor told me, say, "Hi, son, can you talk to him? Because he can't relate to none of us." So I took the kid on a one-on-one. And the kid say, he's trying to tell me about my life, but he from the county. He never lived like me. My mother and father on drugs. I got to support my brother and sister. I'm the one got to go out there and bring them something to eat because my mother and father take all that money and spend it on drugs.
Yeah.
So the kid say, he don't understand my lifestyle, so how is he going to tell me about my lifestyle? And then he looked at me and say, "Now see, you, where you come from, I can understand you, we can talk."
Right.
You know, because I know you understand where I'm coming from.
Right.
Because you've been there.
Right.
You know, and he got to talking about his mother and father, and he started crying. So when he started crying, I was telling him about when my father passed when I was on lockup, and I was in my cell crying.
Right.
You know, and then later on that night I was in bed, And it just hit me. I said, CRY, creating responsible youth. That's how I came over there.
Yeah.
And just like them boys in the penitentiary, they crying out. Just like in the Maryland State penal system, the ones that's positive and they change their life, they crying out for help, and we here to help.
We're here to create responsible youth. Last year, we heard from Bobby Pittman, who was in the Maryland prison system and is now out, a community organizer and leading a bully intervention program. And this is what he's doing with his second chance in the interest of justice.
Bobby Pittman from Baltimore. I'm a Baltimorean, and I actually went to prison when I was 17 years old. I was sentenced to a life plus 15-year consecutive 15-year sentence at 17 years old for felony murder.
How much time you do serve?
I served 24 years on that.
Okay, before you.
Yeah.
Okay, come on.
And a year ago, the crazy thing, it's been a year and a few days. It's probably been 370 days I've been free.
Yeah, come on. Welcome home.
Thank you. And since I've been out here, it's been amazing. You know, the things that I learned while I was inside of prison, it carried over, you know what I mean, with me out here. Like within the last year, I helped like 50 people get jobs with a connection with the Mayor's Office of Employment Development. Shout out to Nigel Jobs on Deck Jackson.
Okay. Mr. Jackson.
We got individuals, like a couple mothers, single mothers into schooling.
Okay.
You know what I mean? With full scholarships.
Yeah.
Got 10 people into schools. You know what I mean? People that never believed that they'd have an opportunity to get their education. We got about 10 people in schooling, and I did all that through my peer recovery knowledge, my lived experience, and understanding where these individuals come from and assessing these individuals, seeing, you know what I mean, like certain things that they might need or whatever.
Right.
And like, man, you know that you can get that, you can do that.
What made you stop, once you got to a point where you say you changed, what made you get to a point where you started thinking that you can get out? What inspired you about that?
This is crazy. I actually fell off. I was on lockup one time,
and
I heard all this screaming and yelling. I'm like, what is this screaming and yelling for? It was like 2012.
Yeah.
So they like, the law passed. I'm like, what law? They said the UNGA.
Right.
The UNGA's passed. So I'm talking about people on lockup screaming and all this stuff, right? I'm talking about, I can hear on the compound individuals screaming and celebrating and things like this. And the crazy thing, they was screaming and yelling about a chance.
Come on. Yeah.
You know what I mean? It wasn't even no guarantee. All they know
I got a chance.
I got a chance because I done exhausted all of my goddamn remedies.
Yeah.
But I got a chance
Come on.
right now to get, you know what I mean, to have my case looked at again.
Yeah.
That's when it started.
Right.
That's when it started. The UNGAs went out, you know, we wound up being like 200.
You start seeing that people seeing people going home.
People I've been looking up to. They, like now they done took my daggone, my mentor. My mentor gone. I was happy for him. But now it made me like had to step up more. That's so because I had to prepare for my chance. I see it now.
Yeah, okay.
Maryland, you know what I mean, they said that they had a meaningful opportunity for release through the parole system.
Right.
But it wasn't one person that got parole since 1995.
That's right.
So it was a fight.
Yeah.
It took about 6 years, but it gave us hope. We like, man, look.
Oh yeah.
We just waiting. Yeah. We sitting there like, man, when 6 years? 6 years later, 2018. That's when it was an agreement with the ACLU and Maryland courts that we going to restructure the parole system.
Right, for juvenile lifers.
For juvenile lifers. And on that, you know, they created a whole new set of criteria that an individual on parole or going up for parole had to meet.
Right.
If they meet these things, the parole commission has the opportunity to release them.
Mm-hmm.
So started going through that. I went through the whole process in 2018, went up for parole and all that, was denied. My first parole hearing, of course. But I saw people going home.
Yeah, through the same, through the system.
Through parole. Like, I'm sitting there like, oh man, I done seen somebody go home from parole. Like, this is real.
Yeah.
The first couple I done seen, know what I mean? I'm like, oh, this real now. I see how real this is.
Right. But talk about what you're doing now.
So I do peer recovery work. I got a nonprofit, bully intervention teams. So what we do with bully intervention teams is not your average bully intervention. No, I mean, we look at all forms of injustice as bullying.
Right. Yeah, you talking about bullies, yeah.
Yeah, all forms of injustice is bullying.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I see, I was seeing bullying when I went down to Annapolis this week.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They bullying individuals through misinformation.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? This organization will try to make sure these individuals that receive this misinformation will receive proper information because they've been bullied through ignorance.
Right.
You know what I mean? It just was horrible. And like when individuals come, like what we do on the weekend Saturdays, individuals that was incarcerated, like a lot of people look at them because they doing good. They doing good. But they don't know the stress of that. You know what I mean? Because you know what you representing. You got to be a certain type of way because you're trying to be an example for these individuals. Yeah. You're trying to pioneer for these individuals.
You ain't got
to come
the luxury
out.
to make no mistake.
And we have our peer ran session where we can just relieve ourselves because it's a lot of pressure.
Oh no, that's there. Wellness. You got a wellness space. You got a wellness space. You gotta have it. Cause like you say, our reality is this here. Like, we don't have the luxury of making a mistake. We don't have, and everything that we've been afforded and every opportunity that we have, we don't look at it as an opportunity for us. We look at it as an opportunity to show society that we're different. So therefore, the person that I'm talking about, who I'm representing on their behalf, I'm saying that I'm different. But this person I'm asking you to give the same consideration that y'all gave me is also different. So we want to be in a position where we can have a voice on altering how people are serving time. One, we want to be able to say if you give them more programs, if you give them more hope, you'll meet your purpose of people changing and coming back out in society. But more importantly, we want to be able to tell the person, like you said, man, rest assured that you got advocates out there. The ACLU of Maryland and advocates urge the Senate to pass the Second Look Act, House Bill 853. And for those that are interested, the hearing for the Second Look Act, House Bill 853, in front of the Senate Judicial Proceeding Committee will be held Tuesday, March 25th, 2025, 1 p.m. to 5 p.m. in the East Miller Building, Room 2. For more information, visit MarylandSecondLook.com or ACLUMaryland.org. There you have it, the real news and Rattling the Bars. We ask that you comment on this episode. Tell us, do you think a person deserves a second chance? And if giving a person a second chance is in fact in the interest of justice.
Thank you so much for watching the Real News Network, where we lift up the voices, stories, and struggles that you care about most. And we need your help to keep doing this work, so please tap your screen now, subscribe, and donate to the Real News Network. Solidarity forever.